Well, if nothing else, we got a great basketball game. I think the result, notwithstanding, actually, I mean, including the result, and we'll talk a lot about the result, and we'll talk a lot about how the result came to be. But that was a great basketball game. I mean, it absolutely was. This thing went down to the wire. Pitt still had a chance to take the lead at the end or to cut it down to one possession or get close. Big lead by Pitt turned into a big lead by Carolina. Ultimately ended up being a 7-point win for the Tar Heels. The Panthers' run in the ACC tournament comes to a close with a 72-65 loss here on Saturday night. Hell of a game. Hell of an effort from Pitt. Hell of a performance, a couple of performances from some key guys. Obviously, a few guys were very much MIA on this game. Some guys that Pitt very much needs in order to win were MIA in this game, and we'll talk about all of that. But Pitt's ACC tournament is over. The regular season has been over, and now it's just a matter of waiting until Sunday, and we find out if this team makes the NCAA tournament. What do we say about this game? Bub Carrington was awesome. Jalen Lowe was really good. Blake Hinson and Ishmael Leggett didn't show up. I don't want to say didn't show up. I'm not going to say didn't show up. I'm not going to say that they let the team down. I mean, they had an off night. They had off nights, those two guys, Blake Hinson and Ishmael Leggett, combined for 11 points on 4 of 19 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3. Blake Hinson held without a three-pointer. The last time that happened was the Purdue-Fort Wayne game. And it was the only other time that happened this season. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Clemson game. The game at Clemson. He was 0-4 in that game. He was 0-4 against Purdue-Fort Wayne. So this is the third time this season when Hinson has been held without a three-pointer. He had, 5 points. The last time he had that few points in a game was the Purdue-Fort Wayne game. And there was a point where it looked like Pitt was going to be able to overcome the lack of scoring from Blake Hinson, the lack of production from Ishmael Leggett. There was a point where it looked like they were going to be able to survive that because Carrington and Lowe were playing so well and scoring so much. Guillermo Diaz-Graham got some early buckets. It looked like they were going to be able to survive Blake Hinson and Ishmael Leggett not really producing much. But when it comes down to it, you need your best guys to be your best guys. And I wrote in the 321 column this morning, and we obviously talked a lot yesterday in the postgame show about how, Pitt gets other guys to step up. They have so many ways to score. They have so many ways to attack you. But the sort of foundation of all of that is that Blake Hinson is on. Blake Hinson has to be good. And then because the conversation is about who else scores in addition to Blake Hinson. Blake Hinson will get his. Who else is steps up? Like yesterday, it was Ishmael Leggett stepped up and had a monster game, a 30-point game. Today, it looked like it was Bub Carrington because Bub Carrington stepped up and had 24 points, shot 9 of 17 from the floor, grabbed 5 rebounds, played a great game, played all 40 minutes, and was outstanding. And it looked like he was going to be the other guy who stepped up. But the problem was Hinson didn't do his part. The other game against North Carolina this season, he scored 11 points. He was 2 of 11 from 3, 4 of 16 from the field. Not a great game. Pretty bad game overall for Blake Hinson. Eclipsed by this one here tonight where he played 40 minutes and scored 5 points. Didn't make a basket until 10 and a half minutes left in the second half. It's really, really hard for Pitt to win when Blake Hinson plays like that. And they could get over against Purdue-Fort Wayne without Blake Hinson making a three. But when they played at Clemson and Blake Hinson didn't make a three, you know the end result of that game. One thing I'm probably going to come back to a lot tonight. One thing I'm probably going to say a lot tonight. You're going to hear me repeat it a lot over the course of this post-game show, and I'm probably going to say it a lot as we talk about this game going forward. Look, Carolina is really, really good. Pitt played a team that is better. I mean, Carolina was not just the superior team tonight. They are the superior team. Carolina is better than Pitt. I don't think there's any question about that. And I kept thinking that as we were working through the second half and Pitt was trailing and Carolina got up, 6 and they got up 7. And, I kept thinking like, man, to some extent, it's a testament, it is a credit to Pitt that they're able to stay in this game the way they have. They're able to play in this game and battle in this game the way they have against what is clearly a superior team. And it's disappointing that they let it get away. But, I think if you look at this game, I don't judge anything about Pitt's ability to play with other teams in the country and in the conference based on this game, because they played the best team in the ACC tonight. And they played one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the country tonight. And they gave them all they could handle. And it got to a point in the second half, there's no question, when R.J. Davis is rolling and Armando Bacot's rolling, where Carolina looked like it was getting what it wanted pretty easily. Pitt's defensive intensity just couldn't keep up. Whereas Carolina applied the pressure for 40 minutes and made it really difficult for Pitt to get what it wanted. And even the things that they got, the good shots that Bub Carrington had and made, and Jalen Lowe scoring, it came the hard way. They had to fight for it. They had to battle for it. Carolina was able to get things a little bit more easily. But that's because they're one of the best teams in the country. And my opinion about Pitt has not changed one bit from where it was 2.5 hours ago. 6:53 tonight, I felt a certain way about this Pitt team and thought certain things about this Pitt team. And now at 9:23 on my clock, I feel the same way and think the same things. If anything, I'm a little more encouraged because here they just took one of the top 5 teams in the country, or top 4 teams in the country, definitely the top team in the ACC, pretty much down to the wire, while getting virtually nothing from Blake Hinson, their undisputed best player, or the guy who has been their undisputed best player for 32 games this season, and Ishmael Leggett, who scored 30 yesterday. And they took Carolina down to the wire. They had it as a 4-point game in the final minute, 4-point game in the final 3 minutes. Problem was they only made one basket in the final 4 minutes, and that's a bit of an issue. Lots to talk about here. I think the chat screen is already filling. Oh no, I can't see the chat screen. Oh no. Where's the chat? I'm sure you guys are chatting, but I can't see it on my hold on. I'm going to have to bring up the there's the chat screen. Oh man, I can't see it on my streaming software here that I usually see it on from YouTube. I can't believe this. But I can see it here on the regular YouTube page, so I will I'll go to it there and I'll be able to keep up with all of you guys. I'll see what you guys are talking about. But you know the deal. This is the Panther-Lair Post-Game show. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com with all the Pitt sports news. Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, blah, 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 blah. You know what we always ask you to do. You know what I always say to you. I say it every day on the morning Pitt videos. Say it during all the live streams. Say it during the post-game shows. Like this video. Subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm anxiously rushing through the preliminaries because it's Friday night, man. And win or lose, the bottle was coming out. But definitely after a loss. I'm getting low. If they won this game, there was a distinct possibility that we were going to the bottom on this bottle and getting the next bottle out. But they lost, so we'll just we'll do what we can here. We're still going to finish this bottle. Whether it all goes into one shot or not, we're going to finish it. Oh, we got just a little bit left. So keep that right there. But a valiant effort from Pitt. Pretty strong performance overall, all things considered, those things being the virtual absence of Blake Hinson and Ishmael Leggett. Pretty impressive performance. Strong play against the best team in the ACC, one of the best teams in the country. And here's to waiting for Selection Sunday and finding out their fate. Because it's Friday night, we got a little chaser too, you know. I like these Friday evening games. Thursday at 5 o'clock, maybe not exactly the setting. Friday night at 9:30. Yeah, we're going to have some drinks to talk about this. All right, I'm going to jump into the chat screen. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Get the conversation going there. Michael B starts us off as a super chatter. And we appreciate that. If you look, there's a lot of comments and questions in here already. If you want to make sure your comment gets read, your question gets answered, you too can be a super chatter. Go down to the The little $sign down at the bottom of the chat screen. You click that. You can contribute to the podcast. We appreciate that for sure. And Michael B got us started as a super chatter. Says, Pitt battled so hard against the number 1 seed upcoming. And yeah, Carolina is going to be a number 1 seed. I don't think they should be. I don't think there's any question about it. Michael B says, Pitt battled so hard against the number 1 seed, yet they are most likely going to get left out of selection Sunday. I'm so depressed, and Pitt deserves to be in the field. Beyond frustrating, Chris, because the NIT sucks. I don't know what's going to happen on selection Sunday. I don't know if Pitt's going to get picked. I don't know if they're going to get left out. All the talk yesterday before the Wake Forest game even happened was that simply getting to this game against North Carolina might not be enough, that they might need to get that win. But you know what, man? And I wrote this in the 3-2-1 column this morning. Just watch basketball. Like, just watch basketball. And the selection committee or anybody who's putting together brackets, watch basketball. And you watch the Pitt team that played against Wake Forest last night, another bubble team. And you watch the Pitt team that played against North Carolina tonight, a presumptive number 1 seed, and no worse than the top number 2 seed. Watch those 2 games and tell me this isn't an NCAA tournament caliber team. And I know, well, you got to play the whole season. Great. Watch the last 25 games they've played. Watch the last 20 games they've played. Watch the last 2/3 of the season that this team has played and tell me they don't belong in the field of 68. Tell me they're not among the best 36 teams after the automatic qualifiers. I mean, really. Just watch basketball. Like, set all of your paperwork aside, set all of your metrics and your strength of schedule and your net rankings and your bracket, set all of it aside and just watch this team play and tell me, are they one of the best 36 teams that are not going to get an automatic qualifying bid? Right? I mean, like, this, it seems like a no-brainer to me. And I knew that Jay Billis would be a great advocate for these ACC teams during this ACC tournament. But I think he was genuinely impressed with Pitt. I think he has genuinely been impressed with Pitt watching them over the last 2 games. And I think he's genuinely impressed with what Pitt has been this season. And seeing them up close, I think he's even more convinced. You heard him at the end of the game when he was asked, is Pitt an NCAA tournament team? He says, yes, they are an NCAA tournament team. They should be in the tournament field. And I think he's absolutely right. I mean, they just gave Carolina a heck of a game. And yeah, they lost. They didn't win that game, but hey, it's all about playing the tough schedule, right? Well, they just played, top 5 team in the country, top 4 team in the country, and pretty much took them down to the wire. It'll be a real shame if this team gets left out of the NCAA tournament. It really will. And that's not to say that they're blameless. I'm not going to pretend like this is all the world against Pitt. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities to take themselves off the bubble, going back to beating Florida to potentially play Baylor instead of Oregon State, which would have been better on the non-conference strength of schedule. How about beating Missouri? How about not losing at Syracuse when you leave 16 points at the free throw line? How about not losing the first game against Clemson? How about not losing to Syracuse at home? How about not getting blown out by 33 at Wake Forest? How about not losing at Clemson? There were plenty of opportunities along the way of bad losses and missed opportunities. There were plenty of instances where Pitt could have taken itself off the bubble or played itself away from the bubble and not ended up on the bubble in the first place. But they missed on those opportunities. So they're not blameless, but I think they've done enough to overcome some of those shortcomings and show themselves to be an NCAA tournament team. And I'll leave it with this, and then we'll get back to the chat. But this is something I'm probably going to say a lot. If you are setting out to make a tournament field with the best 68 teams in college basketball, if you're setting out to make a tournament field with the 32 automatic qualifiers and the best 36 other teams in college basketball, and you don't include Pitt, then you have failed at your job. You have failed in your goal. If this is ostensibly supposed to be the best in college basketball and you don't put this team in, you have failed. You are not working toward that goal. And I have to think a lot of people would agree about that. A lot of people who just watch basketball. All right, let's get into the chat. I really wish my the chat screen on my streaming software was working, but what are you going to do? Doesn't entirely work out. Glovebox is a super chatter, but I'm not sure where your comment was. I appreciate you being a super chatter. We'll keep an eye out for it. See what we can find. David H2P is a super chatter, says, do you think Capel would decline an NIT bid? I hope not. I'm going to be honest. So the NIT is weird. You're playing for something, but you're kind of not. You know what I mean? You're playing for what's not even a consolation prize. The age-old thing of like, would you rather get bounced in the first or second round, or would you rather win the NIT? You'd rather be in the NCAA tournament. Like, to me. Like if I have the choice of playing in the NCAA tournament, even being one and done or two and done, the choice between that and winning the NIT or getting the NIT finals, I take the NCAA tournament, 7 days out of the week and twice on Sunday. I mean, there's no question about that whatsoever. Now, would Jeff Capel decline the NIT? I don't think so. Because I'll be honest, I want to watch this team play more. Now, I want to watch them to play when there's something on the line. I want to watch them to play when they have something to play for. But I genuinely enjoy watching this team play. They're more fun to watch when Blake Hinson is making shots, taking shots, and doing all of that. But it's fun to watch this team play. They're a fun team. They're a likable team. They can be an explosive team. They only had 65 points tonight, but again, that was without their best player really doing anything. So I would hope that Capel wouldn't decline an NIT bid, and I can't really see why he would. I don't think there's anything to be gained from declining an NIT bid. And I can't see the players really like opting out of an NIT bid, guys who would be in a position to, because I think they genuinely like playing together. I said I like to watch this team. I think Jeff Capel likes to coach this team. I think these guys like to play together. And if an NIT bid presented itself, I believe they would accept it. But I don't know. I mean, Jeff Capel, I haven't checked my phone in a while, but Capel didn't call me after the game to tell me if they would take an NIT bid or not. I'm guessing he would rather not be faced with that decision in the first place and just make the NCAA tournament. But I don't think he would decline it, nor should he. No, John Christovich says he's not watching the NIT. So, well, John, what do you like? What are you gonna do when they play in the if they end up in the NIT and we're doing post game shows? Are you gonna tune in without having watched the game? Come on, John, get on top of things here. Stay focused. Stay focused. All right, let's get to the questions right from the top. David Allen says, tough one. The calls didn't go our way. Carolina is solid. By the way, a guy on the Mount Rushmore Pitt hoops doesn't disappear in huge games like Hinson did. All right, two things. As far as the fouls, Pitt got called for 17. Carolina got called for 12. Look, there was a lot more that could have been called in this game. I don't think there's any question about it. They called it light. Just like yesterday's game, or at least the first half of yesterday's game, and I thought it continued into the second half. Pitt had a couple questionable calls go for them, but they had plenty of missed calls that could have gone against them. And same thing with Carolina. I don't think the fouls were the problem. I think there were a lot of problems. I don't know if fouls were really one of them. I mean, Carolina attempted 19 free throws and Pitt attempted 6, so that's part of it. But you know what? Like, Pitt could have done more to get fouls, to sort of draw free throw shooting opportunities. Like, I mean, I'm looking here. 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So they attempted about 21 layups in this game. Carolina attempted about 27. So, just sort of real quick looking over the box score and control effing the word layup. You're going to get more free throw opportunities and you're going to draw more fouls when you drive into the paint and try and attack. And that was the biggest thing that was missing. I think that was the biggest thing that was missing in this game. It was the biggest thing that Pitt needed to do more was drive and attack, and particularly Ishmael Leggett. Ishmael Leggett had 7 shot attempts, and as I scroll through here, 2 of them were layups. Now, you compare that with the Wake Forest game where I think he attempted 9 layups in that game. And where was he so successful? Where was he most successful and most productive in the Wake Forest game? And where has he been at his best all season long? It's driving. It's initiating contact. It's tough physical plays at the basket. Now, he might not have gotten all of those to fall tonight like he did yesterday, but he could have at least gotten another foul or 2 on Armando Bacot. Who knows? Maybe you're able to switch and get Harrison Ingram on him, and you can get a foul or 2 on Ingram so Ingram can't smother Blake Hinson like he did. And they talked after the game about the defense that Armando Bacot played, and he played well. There's no question about it. He was really good. But Harrison Ingram had a whole lot to do with Blake Hinson not doing a whole lot. I mean, he was all over Hinson. And on the opportunities that Pitt got where they were able to get Ingram to switch off of Hinson, they never really seemed to look to take advantage of it. There was a distinct period of time in this game, particularly in the second half, where Hinson had opportunities that he should have gotten the ball in his hands, and it just didn't go to him. There were times where I thought it looked like Hinson was just standing around a lot, was not moving as much as he needed to move. I don't know if he looked a little bit tired, but then he's diving on the floor for loose balls, so he's not completely exhausted. But there were times where the ball needed to go to Blake Hinson, and it didn't. And I'm not really sure why. You know, I think there were things they could have done to try to get some separation between Hinson and Ingram, who was defending him so tightly. And it just didn't really... They weren't able to get the things they usually like to get, and they weren't able to really create anything with the defense that Ingram was playing on Hinson. And so that was a pretty big disappointment in that game. But, you know, on the fouls, I really think, I mean, you have to drive. You have to drive. You have to attack. And I mean, Pitt did that. What did I say? They had 21 layup attempts. And there were times where those layup attempts it seems like it should have resulted in a whistle, but it didn't. And there had to have been at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 layups that were exactly the kind of layups that those guys make every game. Jalen Lowe had like 2 that I can think of. Ishmael Leggett had 1 that I can think of. Layup attempts that they fall in every game, and they just didn't fall tonight. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you miss a couple baskets. Sometimes the baskets don't fall, the buckets don't fall the way they usually do. And Pitt ran into that a little bit with their layups, but they also weren't getting fouls on those layups. So they end up with 6 free throw attempts. And that was a bit of a disparity. But Carolina was attacking. You mean Carolina was working the ball down to the post and attacking, either with their bigs, with Bacot obviously, or with the guards driving. And Pitt didn't really do that. Not that I expect them to try to post up and work the ball down to the center. There's not really much good that's going to happen from that. But attacking more with the guards, attacking more with the wings, trying to drive. I mean, Ingram is as big as Hinson, so you're not going to be able to bully him the way you bull in a china shop some of these other guys that guards Blake Hinson. But I think there are things you could do to create driving opportunities that would result in either fouls or made baskets. Let's see. Michael B. Super Chatter again says, please tell me I'm wrong that if Duke or Carolina had our exact same record metrics, everything Pitt has, they would both be solidly in the field. I'm right. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know. You know? What would be Duke's win on the road, of Pitt's win at Duke? I don't know. I mean, forget the resume, forget the metrics, forget the non-conference strength of schedule, forget the signature wins or the bad losses or any of that stuff. Pitt looks like a tournament team. They've got 22 wins. They finished 4th in a power conference. They've got big wins. They've got a great road record. They acquitted themselves pretty nicely, I would say, in the ACC tournament. I'm not really sure. So they played crappy games in November. BFD, right? Like, come on. What are we doing here? I didn't want to go down this rant again, but are we trying to get the best teams into the NCAA tournament or not? Because if we are, I just watched one of them tonight, and it's not the one that's a guaranteed lock. I watched two of them tonight, I should say. I watched two of the best teams in the country. Two of the best 68 teams in the country played tonight in the ACC tournament semifinals. John Waffle H2P says, I think if we don't make the dance, Jeff Capel should be fired and we should bring Samson back east. John Waffle H2P, I appreciate you being a super chatter, sir. Willette Harris says, Teddy Valentine sucks. Please retire. Yeah, TV Teddy. He was out there tonight. Again, I mean, there were a lot of free throws for Carolina, not a lot of free throws for Pitt. But I felt like just things weren't getting called overall, which was a continuation again from yesterday. I thought they could have called more. And I thought Pitt could have tried at least to take advantage of the fact that they weren't calling more. But here's the thing. Carolina's a more physical team. Carolina's a faster team. Carolina has more length. Carolina has better shooting. Carolina has more of a post presence. Carolina's better than Pitt in pretty much every way. They are. And I don't think there's any shame in acknowledging that. Carolina's a better team. And Pitt had them down 9 in the first half, battled them pretty resiliently, made them work to earn this win. Carolina had to earn this thing. They got up by 7, and after that, Pitt kept cutting it down to 4. They never got closer than 4 in the final 8 minutes, but they kept cutting it down to 4 and making Carolina make baskets and making Carolina defend really hard. There's a pretty good chance that Carolina had to work harder tonight than it will, or definitely harder than it worked last night, and probably harder than it'll have to work tomorrow night. So, are we looking for the best teams in college basketball? Because we just saw a team that I think would qualify as being one of the best, 45 teams in college basketball, I would think. I don't know how I got off on that again. I guess we were talking about the fouls and things like that, but it's just the reality. More comments and questions, but you know what? We're going to finish our bottle here because, it's Friday night, Maybe if I finish the bottle, if I had more in this bottle, I should have just drank it out of the bottle, actually. It's only like half a shot. If I had more in this bottle, we might sing that Rebecca Black song Friday, but I don't, so we won't. Scott Mitchell says, giving up second chance opportunities made the difference. Carolina didn't exactly light it up. Please don't make that Hinson's final game. Yeah, second chance opportunities were huge in this game. Carolina only scored 9 second chance points, but they got 12 offensive rebounds. And that limited Pitt's possessions. You know what I mean? Like every time they gave up one of those offensive rebounds, it cut down on the amount of time that Pitt had to try to get a little more offense going. And I think that was big. Now, to Pitt's credit, they didn't give up an offensive rebound in the final 4.5, 5 minutes, but Carolina also didn't really miss many shots in the final 4.5 or 5 minutes. I think, they were 2 of 4 in the final 5 minutes. So, but they didn't get any offensive rebounds. So Pitt was able to corral that. And look, Pitt's been a pretty good rebounding team, but again, Carolina's just better. Carolina's just a better team. And they're a better rebounding team. Maybe I didn't include that one. I said about how they're a more physical team, they're a more athletic team, better, faster team, and all those things. And look, if Pitt makes the NCAA tournament and they run into a team like North Carolina, they're probably going to lose again. But Carolina is one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. So all we really learned about Pitt tonight, honestly, and I don't, just scrolling through the chat section, I don't see a lot of people trying to make grand proclamations about Pitt based on this game. If the only thing we learned about Pitt tonight is that when they play a top 4 team in the country, they're probably going to lose. I don't think that's a big revelation, right? It certainly doesn't mean that Pitt's not one of the best 45 teams in the country. David Greenwald says no Hinson or Leggett and still stuck with them. That's the thing. And that's going to be one of the mantras from this game. They got 11 points from Blake Hinson and Ishmael Leggett on 4 of 19 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3. and they still were able to take Carolina more or less down to the wire. It's pretty impressive. Josh Newark says this is a tournament team, no doubt. Outside of Hinson being off, every time Baycott switched to guard Bub or Low up top, Pitt could never get it in the post. Having no inside offense was a killer. You know what? And shout out to our guy Matt Steinbrink for pointing this out in the Panther-Lair group chat or group text. Doubling in the post was killing Pitt. Just absolutely killing them, because every time they doubled in the post, they ended up leaving like RJ Davis open. And they were trying to recover, but Davis was just killing them. And Baycott is too good of a passer and has too good of, he's just so calm in there that when the double team comes, he's almost instantly able to find the player who's open. And he worked the ball back outside and just took advantage of it. It felt like they took advantage every time Pitt doubled in the post. But of course, the alternative, if you don't double in the post, you're either going to get Federico and Guillermo Diaz-Graham fouled out, or you're going to give up an easy bucket to Baycott, because he's really good. And again, they're better. And yeah, not having an inside presence on offense or defense, it hurt Pitt. There's no question about it. But I think we've seen enough this season. Like, look, if another team has a really good big man, then that's going to be a problem for Pitt. Most teams don't have Armando Baycott or anyone even on that level. And I thought even like DJ Burns at NC State, Federico was much better against him the second time than he was the first time. So it's not, Baycott is a special player. RJ Davis is a special player. They're really good. And you run into a team that's that good, chances are you're going to have to be exceptional to beat them. You're not going to be able to get only 5 points out of your best player, who was decidedly not their best player tonight. Let's take a second just to make a little commotion for Bub Carrington. 24 points on 9 of 17 shooting. He was 4 of 8 from 3, made both of his free throws. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 turnovers. Played every minute of this game tonight. Bub Carrington was outstanding, and he's been outstanding basically since, I keep backdating it to the Wake Forest game, the game at Wake Forest when he was 3 of 13. And he comes out the next game, the Virginia Tech game, he gets 2 fouls in the first 90 seconds, and he sits for the entire first half, scores 7 in the second half of that game, really efficient, really sharp, and just has been really good since then. Bub Carrington has been outstanding over the last 6 games or however many it is now. 7 or whatever, maybe 7 including this one. Because he was great tonight, and he has been great since that Wake Forest game. He's such a good player. I thought his defense, RJ Davis still finished with 25 points. He was 8 of 18 from the floor, 3 of 10 from 3. I still felt like Bub did a good job defending Davis when he was on Davis. It wasn't 100% perfect, and he wasn't on Davis the entire time either. They got switches. They had Leggett on him at times. Sometimes they would end up with Hinson on him or one of the centers, which was not ideal. But I thought Bub Carrington did a really good job. His defense is on point. I still think he could drive more. I still think he should drive more, but we've been saying that for 33 games now. So maybe it's just not going to happen. But he was outstanding tonight. He's been outstanding since that Wake Forest game. And shout out to Jalen Lowe. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, no turnovers from Jalen Lowe. 1 foul. 7 of 16 from the floor. He made a 3. He had hit both of his free throws. Those two guys were great. After that, Guillermo had 8. Ish scored 6. Blake had 5. Zach Austin made 1 3. And Federico made a basket. And that was it. That was it. Another game where they just didn't have a lot of assists in the second half. They had 4 assists in the second half. I think they had 3 assists in the second half last night. So that's, obviously they have to move the ball better, and it's something they were doing much better in the final 4 or 5 games of the regular season. But yeah, take a quick detour to the positive there, Bub Carrington and Jalen Lowe, and how those guys played tonight. Scroll through here. Chevy Troutman says, live by the Blake, die by the Blake. Yeah. That's how this team is. That's who this team is. David Allen says they aren't a tournament team. They are a bubble team. Entry to the NCAA is likely a coin flip. Decent season, kept me interested. I think they get in the play-in round. Yeah, I mean, they're not a tournament team right now. They're not locked in. I mean, right now they're a bubble team, and some of it's going to depend on what happens in other games. And I feel like some of the results we were seeing, or at least some of the in-progress games while Pitt's game was happening, weren't necessarily favoring Pitt's chances on the bubble, or at least it was other bubble teams were doing well and perhaps surviving and advancing, which would hurt Pitt's bubble chances. But look, we'll all see what Joe Lunardi says tonight. We'll see what he says in the morning. We'll overreact to it. We'll pay too much attention to it. And, freak out about it. And then, then we'll find out on Sunday night. The good thing is we're like, what time is it now? It's almost 10 o'clock on Friday night. We are less than 48 hours away from not having to talk about this anymore, except for when we complain about it if they miss. Alex R. says, Capel is a true big away from being good. Haven't had a true good big since Steven Adams, but Hinson has to show up fading to the corner most of the night. That's not going to win you anything. I think John Hughley was a true good big. I don't know if he necessarily would have fit with how last year's team progressed. I don't know if he necessarily would have fit with how this year's team plays. But John Hughley was a true good big. It just didn't really work out. He didn't fit in with the team. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you could get a good big, that would be a huge boost because he's had good guards. He's gotten good play out of the wings, but you need all five guys to be good. NJ Doc says Pitt is 12-4 since starting Jalen Lowe, probably the third best team in the ACC, better than Virginia, not a tournament team. I watch a lot of Big East and Big Ten teams. They are definitely a tournament team. Lad Scrimpton says, I have no idea what to think in terms of selection Sunday. Wolf HD says this game came down to two things. One, RJ Davis showed up in the second half and Hinson didn't. Two, UNC has a legit big man and Pitt doesn't. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, like if you want to talk about what decided this game, RJ Davis did what he typically does. After a slow start. I mean, Davis had a slow start. He didn't He didn't produce a whole lot. Let me check his first half stats here. He had 6 points in the first half, 19 in the second half, right? I mean, he was 2 of 6 from the floor in the first half, 0 of 3 from 3. Really didn't do much. And so it was sort of remarkable. I mean, Davis and Hinson were the two leading scorers in the ACC, and they had a combined 6 points at halftime of this game. It was not being dominated by the guys we expected to see dominate the game. But then obviously Davis turned it on in the second half and Hinson didn't. I kept thinking Hinson would start catching fire. And he fired a few threes early in the second half, which was good. I mean, I think it's what he needed to do. And every time he shot those, I said, yes, shoot that. Keep shooting that. Even when he missed, keep shooting that. It just didn't go down. And you felt like if one of those would have hit, he would have been fired up. The team would have been fired up. He had an and one. 6:14 to go. They cut the lead to 3 with a Blake Hinson and 1 on a fast break. That was the one where Bub Carrington had the long pass diagonal down the court, and Hinson went in and fouled and finished. There was like 6:14 to go, and that cut the lead to 60-57. You thought, okay, they're gonna. This is a spot. This is where Blake Hinson gets fired up. This is where he gets ignited. This is where it really takes off. He didn't score again. And actually, Pitt made 3 baskets in the final 6 minutes of the game. Didn't quite work out. But I thought that was going to be a point where Blake Hinson would catch fire. He didn't. So, but you're right. I mean, that was the difference. RJ Davis got hot in the second half. Blake Hinson didn't. And Carolina has Armando Bacot. Pitt doesn't. Let's see. Paul Sebastian says Bacot hurt Pitt after misses a big guy to battle him would have helped. Yeah, I mean, rebounding numbers. I'm sorry. Paul's comment. Bacot hurt Pitt after the misses. A big guy to battle him would have helped. Yeah, I mean, rebounding wise, Pitt got out rebounded by 10. Pitt's leading rebounder was Bub Carrington, who had 5. Oh no, I'm sorry. Guillermo had 7. Guillermo had 7 rebounds. Let me see how that broke down. Five defense, 2 on offense. Pitt had 8 offensive rebounds. 3 of them were team rebounds. So, I mean, the actual individual players, Jalen Lowe had 1 offensive rebound. Zach Austin had 2. And Guillermo Diaz-Graham had 2. You get out-rebounded. You get out-rebounded by a lot, and you don't really get much in the way of defense or in the way of rebounding production. Federico had 3 rebounds. Guillermo had 7, 5 on defense, and so did Bub Carrington. Bub Carrington had 5 on defense. So, when you have a guard who's like one of your, top rebounders in a game, and I know that's sort of how Pitt has been this season, it's not typically a good thing. Michael Blair says Pitt needs a big man. Yep, I agree about that. Wolf HD says, on the bright side, Pitt basketball really is back. This program is here to stay and will challenge the ACC for the foreseeable future. I mean, look, there are very few teams in the country that I think wouldn't be at least a little concerned about facing this team. And I have to think Carolina probably had some concerns about facing this team. I think Hubert Davis probably went to the locker room at the end of the game and said, I don't know how we did it, but we kept Hinson under wraps. I think most teams in the country will look at this team and say, all right, so they got a guy who is deadly from outside, and he's like 6'7", 240, 245, 250, somewhere around there, and he's deadly from outside. They've got these 2 freshman guards who are just outstanding. They've got this really tough 6-man who comes off the bench, but plays starter minutes, and will just drive at you like a really tough slot receiver who's willing to make plays over the middle of the field. I mean, they've got a big who can step out and drain threes on you. And they've got this super athletic guy who starts at the wing for them, doesn't play a ton of minutes, but boy, he can come out of nowhere and block shots. And if you let him get open in, in a fast break or transition situation, he could slam the ball home. This is a dangerous team. This is the kind of team that can win a lot of games. Unless you are Carolina or Houston or Purdue, or UConn. And so I feel like, is Pitt basketball back? It's hard for me to say that because so much changes from year to year in college basketball. But if Jeff Capel can reload next year the way he reloaded this year, then yeah, I don't see any reason the success can't be sustained. One of the biggest things they achieved last year was establishing a culture in the locker room. And it was one of the biggest things that was missing from the first 4 years of the Jeff Capel era here. Capel had talent on his teams. He had talented teams in the first 4 years. But there were culture issues. There were chemistry issues. There were locker room issues. And last year's team did away with those. Last year's team was able to come together as a team. And that was a big part of why they were able to be successful. And I think it's a big part of why this year's team was able to be successful as well. So if he's able to reload on the talent side where they need to, and that culture continues, that chemistry carries over to next year, there's no reason they can't be battling in the semifinals of the ACC tournament again next year. No reason at all. All right, let's get a couple more here. We got another super chatter jumped in just to... John Waffle says we should be above Merrimack. I think they are, John. I think they are. Let's get Michael B. says, I'm a little behind, but Bub just said he is returning to Pitt next season, and Joe Lunardi updated his brackets, and Pitt didn't move down, still the first 4 out. Well, those are all good things. That's interesting that Bub Carrington said that. I'm going to take your word for it. Obviously, for the last 45 minutes, we'll be doing this live stream. I haven't been checking updates from post-game. But I would also say whatever guys are saying right now, we'll wait. We'll wait. You know what I mean? Obviously, if Pitt can get Bub Carrington back next year, that would be huge. If Bub Carrington returns next year, if Bub Carrington and Jalen Lowe come back next year, Pitt should be preseason no lower than top 6 in the ACC. I mean, seriously. Because those guys are outstanding players. And they showed it tonight. against the best team in the ACC and against one of the top 4 teams in the country. Those two freshmen combined for 41 points. And it's not like they took 50-some shots to do it. They combined for 41 points on 16 of 33 shooting. Like, just a little bit under 50%. That's quick math in the old noggin there. I mean, those guys are really good. And if you get those two back next year, Pitt absolutely is a top 5, top 6 team preseason in the ACC, depending on who else they add, who else they return. You bring back Ishmael Leggett. You get a solid transfer. Maybe you get a big man. They're top 5 preseason in the ACC, and they should be. And they should have those expectations. A lot can happen between now and then, though. And you know what's going to happen between now and then? Selection Sunday. It'll be, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We're all going to follow the bracketology. We're all going to pay close attention to it. We're all going to try and see what everybody's saying and everybody's talking about and what are they first 4 in or excuse me, they're not going to be first 4 in. Are they last 4 in? Are they first 4 out? Are they next 4 out? If they drop, they move up, they this, they that. Look, it comes down to this. You ask yourself a simple question. Are they one of the best of the 36 teams that are not automatic qualifiers? If they are, they should be in. And I don't really, to me, there's nothing else to it. That's what it comes down to. That's the question the committee should ask itself. And whether they're going to get skewed by other factors and other elements and other details and other numbers and stats and metrics, and analytics. And I don't hate any of those things, but if they're going to get skewed by those other things, then I think they're going to miss the point of what they're here to do. They're here to put the best teams in the tournament. And if that's the goal, if that's what they want to do, then Pitt should be in. All right. Pitt loses 72-65. A valiant effort. This isn't a loss where I'm not sitting here feeling bad about Pitt for this loss. It's like I said to you, I feel the same about Pitt right now as I did like 3 hours and 15 minutes ago. Like I feel the same about Pitt as I did 24 hours ago. I think nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is I look at it and I say, all right, this is what they did without anything from Blake Hinson. Imagine where they would have done against North Carolina if they got anything from Blake Hinson. This is only a 7-point game. That's like 3 shots for Blake Hinson to make that difference up. So, if anything, I might be a little bit encouraged about Pitt. Let's see what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee thinks about it when they make their announcement on Sunday night. Who knows? Maybe we'll even go live, do a quick live stream after Selection Sunday just to see what the committee says. Maybe. I don't want to make any promises. This is the after 10 o'clock on a Friday night, Chris Peak talking. So we'll just drink our beer and enjoy the evening. Good run for Pitt in the ACC tournament, even though it was only 2 games, 1 win. Pretty valiant effort against North Carolina. But they ultimately come up short, and now they'll wait to learn their fate on Sunday. So thanks everybody who tuned in tonight. It's been a lot of fun hanging out here on a Friday night. Oh, dropping nuts. It comes in as a super chatter late and asks, "What's in the can?" So this is I'll give a quick shout out here. It's Friday night. What are we doing? Ghostfish Brewing Company. Their grapefruit IPA. Ghostfish is from, where are you guys from? Oregon, I want to say? No, it's brewed in can by Ghostfish, East Westfield, New York. I thought they were in Oregon for some reason. But Ghostfish, this grapefruit IPA from Ghostfish Brewery is a 100% gluten-free brewery. Because, in case you're unaware, we're getting into late night Panther-Lair show here. If you're unaware, I have a gluten-free diet due to the old celiac disease, and so I like to drink the gluten-free beers. And it's a limited supply that you'll find, but there are good ones you can find. Locally, we have Aurochs, which is a great local gluten-free brewery. And recently, just in the last 6 months, 8 months or so, we started to get Ghostfish here in Pittsburgh. We've always had Glutenberg, which is from somewhere in Canada. They're really good. But Ghostfish has 4 or 5 varieties you can find of gluten-free beer. in Pittsburgh. This grapefruit IPA, that's outstanding beer. It's really good. They have a really good white. They have a really good pale lager, a really good pale ale. Ever since finding out I had to stick to the gluten-free diet, it's been really disheartening to be sort of limited to just like 3 or 4 beers and then a bunch of seltzers. And I've drank so many White Claws in the last 4 years. But getting the variety of gluten-free beers has been outstanding. So really fortunate to be able to get these beers. And like I say, I'm about to finish this grapefruit IPA that we've been nursing throughout the show and then go grab another one. So I appreciate you asking the question and checking in about that. It's we could have an offline conversation about the gluten-free beer selection available in Pittsburgh. Maybe we could do a special live stream about that. I need to get gluten-free breweries to sponsor the podcast. If this was the Panther-Lair Post-Game show sponsored by a gluten-free brewery, that'd be awesome. But enough of that. I appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Thanks for the question about the beer. And thanks everybody who chimed in at all. Thanks everybody who is in the comments, the questions, and in the chat stream. We appreciate that for sure. Everybody watching later in the week, we appreciate you as well. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you never miss any of our Pitt video content. And then check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Pitt loses. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you soon on something here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you.